at TLC Greenhouse off of Memorial in Oklahoma City, back with our friend Cortney.
Hello.
Who spoke with us earlier in the season about really great perennials for early spring. That's hard for me to say, but it's definitely a different season now. It's hot as can be.
Yes.
It's as hot in the greenhouse as outside. But Courtney just told me she's consumed 2 gallons of water already, so we're being careful about hydrating. But basically, we're just going to talk today about just that, hot weather plants and really great annuals that can stand up to the heat that even Oklahoma can throw at it.
Right. Yes. So we have some of the hottest summers, right? So we need annuals that can stand up to the heat here, and we do have quite a few at TLC to choose from.
And I typically rely on some of the ones I think of as just standard perennials that I go to over and over again. But you have some that I would say would kind of be on my secondary list, but that I really want to remind people about. Like, for example, when we got here, the first thing I said was, oh, I love that Lavender Plumbago.
The Plumbago's beautiful.
And every year I plan on planting more of it, and then I don't because I forget. I love that.
It's gorgeous. Yes. So this one will grow like maybe into like a small shrub size. So it'll take up some space in your garden and then give you color, you know, that beautiful color all summer long. And
I think sometimes for those of us that want colors that are a little bit more on the pastel side for really hot annual color that doesn't look hot, this Plumbago is really beautiful. I think it looks great with grays and silvers and pale pinks.
It really does.
But here's an obvious one that we always think of.
Yes, I love those. Just really vibrant, bright colors all summer long. Important to deadhead these. It helps with, you know, the reblooming, but also just really heat tolerant. Pretty drought tolerant once they're established also.
And I guess as people decide what zinnias that they want to use in their garden, they might want to distinguish from some that are more cushiony and kind of landscape type of zinnias, like profusion zinnias and some of those. And then those that might be for cut flowers, like some
like a taller variety.
The giant ones.
Right.
These look to be someplace in between, but the vibrant colors really can stand up to the strong sun in Oklahoma, really any place out west, any place where it gets really hot.
Yes.
And then, talk about these.
Beautiful pentas. You can't go wrong with these for just like a mass planting of gorgeous color all summer long. We've got them, they come in purples, pinks, reds, lots of different colors to choose from with pentas. Another one that's important to deadhead.
And new colors and new varieties are being hybridized all the time,
all the time, yes. Also a great pollinator, butterfly and bee attractor.
And actually, most of the plants that we're going to talk about today are great pollinator magnets.
Yeah.
They will really attract butterflies and bees and moths and hummingbirds. Yeah,
definitely.
All of those goodies that bring our gardens to life. So pentas are great. I love what you're saying about deadheading, because we may think of them as being low maintenance because they're tough, but they do need to be deadheaded, and that we really need to keep an eye on them, especially as they're getting established in the heat.
That's the most important thing. If you're planting now, you just need to make sure that you're staying up on your watering while they're establishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might agree with this, that in Oklahoma there's 2 seasons, before the heat and after the heat.
Yes. Yes.
And to the extent we can get our hot weather annuals planted before it gets really, really hot, the better. But I love pentas. What's interesting to me is they look so exotic, and they almost look to me like something, especially this color, that would be a Christmas plant.
Yeah. They do look a little Christmassy, like with the darker foliage. And
and maybe the star shape of the flower. Yeah. But these are in really vibrant, sun-loving colors, but I think these also come in paler colors too.
Yeah, they do. Even white
and pale pink.
Yep.
So if you're somebody that has an all-white garden, then definitely you can still have pentas on your list. Let's go over here a little bit. Of course, Bougainvillea, for those who like exotic
Tropical
plants.
Yes.
They're not for everybody, but definitely they are heat lovers. But one that's, wow, is this a popular plant right now,
The
coleus?
coleus, yeah. It's a great annual for Oklahoma in the sun, in the heat. Just really great foliage colors all summer long. Easy care, really easy to take care of and grow in your garden.
And important, I think, we point out that I used to think of coleus as strictly a shade
Just shade,
plant,
right.
but now there are some that really are great sun lovers, and they're in these unusual, really deep
purples,
tones
yeah.
that I think are wonderful because they can segue beautifully into fall then.
Exactly, like this guy here. I mean, you could take that right into fall with that color.
Yeah, absolutely. This coppery color is especially beautiful, I think.
I love the copper.
Yeah, because it's got gold in it. What variety is this?
What is this? Inferno.
Inferno, okay.
There
Well,
we go.
that makes sense. But the other thing is a lot of them coordinate well together because they're in that same kind of cardinal colored tonal range.
Mm-hmm.
And then down at the end, look at that.
Yeah, with that brown leaf underneath, that coppery undercolor. Gorgeous.
That's a reversible plant.
It makes it easy to mix that green in with these kind of more red tones.
Maybe we need to go down and see what
check it
variety
out.
that is. Excuse us, sir. Isn't this stuff beautiful?
Oh, wow. Yeah, this one's gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? Let's see. Let's check the variety on this one.
Flamethrower.
Flamethrower. Okay,
Pretty.
well, a flamethrower would go well with an inferno, would it not?
I think so.
Really beautiful.
They all seem appropriately named, huh?
Yes, they do. And some of these, now I know some people like their coleus to flower and some people don't. I typically pinch my flowers out because it's all about the foliage to me, but some people like that little bit of verticality.
Yeah, but you're right. Typically it is about the foliage on these
Sir,
guys.
do you grow coleus?
We have one with dark red ones.
And do you fall on team pinch out the flower or keep the flower?
We usually keep the flower until they start getting bad.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, then you get a blooming plant in addition to the beautiful foliage. But I think they are just exceptionally easy, and they're so easy to propagate.
Oh yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you can do that very easily.
The easiest way is to just take a cutting and stick it in water.
Yep.
That's
Just
it.
remove the lower leaves, and roots will come out wherever that leaf
Where the
node
leaf node
is.
So
Yes.
if you cut it here, you could take these leaf nodes or these leaves off, and then roots would come from these leaf nodes there.
Yeah. And it just roots in water or sand very, very easily. So by the end of the season, you really can spread it around and put it in some of your fall planters. So coleus is definitely, I think, a popular plant right now. And oh, aren't these cute? I grew some of this last year. What are these?
What are these?
This is really not what you think of as your traditional periwinkles, but aren't these cute?
These are cute. I love this little star-shaped flower.
And the leaf is smaller.
A really low mounding annual.
Yes, and I bet that they are equally as tough as the other, but they've got a more feminine quality, I think. They look a little
do.
bit more delicate.
They do.
So those are really fun. So let's come this way, Stuart. And then over here, these are just really popular heat-loving plants in Oklahoma.
They are. So we've got some Scaviola.
I think this I bet you have Scaviola. This is Angelonia.
This is Angelonia, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but it's the same color. I'm glad you pointed that out. This is the same color as Scaviola. So if you're somebody that likes your gardens in that color range, and again in white, these are pretty tough. Now I have to say, even though this stuff is beautiful, it's not one of my favorites because it needs to be deadheaded a lot.
A lot.
And it doesn't seem to rebound as quickly for me. I know other people probably have different experiences. That's my question of the day, by the way, for you guys. What annuals do you grow really successfully in your own gardens? Make sure to put your zones, because even though these do well in Oklahoma, I just find that they can get a little rangy looking to me by the end of the summer. So I prefer other ones that can stand up to the heat a little bit better, and probably one of my very favorites
This is Lantana.
is Lantana.
Everybody's favorite. You can't go wrong with it. Just beautiful, bright blooms. For like spring through probably December if you're lucky. I mean, they go and go and go. And these are annual Lantana, but there's perennial Lantana too that will come back. So,
and if we've got any of those, I might like to see those, because I have heard tell of those, but I have not had really good luck with them. But you know, some of them, I just discovered this last year, some of them have really good fragrance even. They almost smell like orange. And look at this. What is this? This is really fun.
This is a nice color, isn't it? What variety do we have here?
This is a beautiful color.
Bloomify.
Bloomify.
Yeah.
Bloomify, and is it, let's see. And they're calling this red. Yeah, they're calling this red. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Really bright. You know that would be a great pollinator.
Oh, it would be a great, and it would travel great distances.
Yeah, they get pretty big.
I think of all of these, this might be my favorite, though this is very fun because if you like the traditional pinks and yellows.
This one's fun because it has some white involved in there.
Yeah,
That's really nice.
that makes it kind of pop.
Yeah.
But they also, I think from an economical standpoint, they're probably, I think, one of the better annuals to plant because they get so big.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah, you can just plant one and it will grow up to be a big girl or a big boy in absolutely no time.
Yep.
And then, of course, one of the best pollinator magnets of all.
Yep. You're right.
Now, talk to me a little bit about deadheading Lantana.
It's for Lantana, I mean, I deadhead basically everything just because I feel like it does help like with reblooming, but Lantana is not as important to deadhead.
Yeah.
I feel like I prune it back, occasionally in the summertime just to, contain its size.
Right.
But I don't deadhead too much on it.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit because you made a great point. Cutting things back midsummer by about 1/3 to 1/2 to contain its size. So
Yes.
talk about that a little bit, and can you do it with most of the perennials we've talked about, or annuals we've talked
Yeah,
about?
you can do it with most of them. It helps with legginess. Things tend to get a little bit leggy as the heat of the summer goes on. So it helps, kind of contain, helps things to bush out.
Right.
It helps, with foliage. A lot of times you'll see your foliage kind of suffer for blooms.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of cutting it back, it helps the foliage to stay green and, look pretty all summer long.
Yeah, look a little more presentable.
Tidy.
Towards the end of the summer,
Yes.
everything starts looking a little less tidy. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
The other thing I think is good to point out is it does, and then it will encourage a fresh flush of bloom if you give it a good feed. And I typically, I tend to feed a lot up until it gets to be pretty consistently over 96, 97, then I hold off. What are your fertilizing practices?
About the same. I'll definitely fertilize when I give everything a prune back. It's about the same. I don't do a lot of fertilizing, like you said, in August.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that things need a little bit of a break then at that point, just like we all do.
Yeah, they're just trying to survive.
Right.
Yeah, not
Right.
necessarily thrive. And another thing I think is a good point is a lot of us vacation in midsummer. So what I like to do if I'm going to go on vacation, I'll cut it back hard right before I leave, that way it goes through some of its regenerative process while I'm gone.
Exactly.
And when I come home, it might look nice again. And that way you get all of your deadheading done. Likewise, if I'm going to cut a big bouquet of flowers, I'll cut a huge bouquet and gift them to someone before I leave, because that, you know, cutting bouquets of flowers is
That's
deadheading
really
too.
smart.
Yeah. So, okay, let's come this way.
Okay.
Now, this is a classic now, but I can remember when it was new on the scene.
The Mexican heather?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to me, tends to grow more like a shrub
It does get shrubby.
or a bush,
It
and it
does.
can get real woody too.
It does, which, yeah, it does, which is interesting is that it's an annual, because sometimes you feel like, well, this is such a shrub, it should be a perennial, but yep, they get about 2 or 3 by 2 or 3 feet tall and wide, so pretty shrubby.
And I also think it's more of one of the more sophisticated and subtle annuals, because it's not extremely showy, but in terms of its use in the landscape and the way it grows and its performance, I think it's one of the more valuable ones. And every year it's like the Plumbago, I think, I'm going to use more of this, and then I forget about it. Part of the problem, I think sometimes too, that TLC and other nurseries are probably getting better about, it's a fine line between when you guys make hot season plants available, because you don't want people to plant them prematurely, but
Right.
they need to plant them before the heat hits.
Before it sets in, so it is a fine line. I mean, it's a couple of weeks that you have, you know, a lot of times to plant before I mean, this year we were 70 for a whole week, and then the next week it was 100 degrees. So it's like,
Yes.
how can we just have to figure it out here in Oklahoma?
It becomes its own form of gardening stress, because you really do have kind of a window of time because obviously they'll get established more easily if we have reliable rainfall, but we don't have reliable rainfall really except early in the season. So it's a lot about timing. And I think if there's any one thing, I'll be interested your thoughts on this, Cortney. To me, the most important thing about really almost planting anything, the biggest indicator or element of a successful planting is getting something established.
Yeah.
Because getting it established, whether it's an annual, a perennial, a shrub, a tree, it's that getting it established, and anything you can do to quicken that process and make its integration into the landscape easier and better is, I think, that the most crucial thing.
Definitely. I agree 100%. The getting things established is, I mean, critical. And a lot of times it's just better to do that when it's cooler outside. The thing about these like heat-loving annuals that we're going over, though, is that they love the heat, so they're a little easier to get established in it.
Yeah, and especially if you kind of loosen up the root ball. And when I first started to garden, I can remember one of the biggest mistakes I made is I would think, you know, you read gardening books and stuff and they'll say, oh, water weekly, water, you know, whatever. No, when you're first planting something, especially in the heat, you water it
You water daily.
every day and right at the root ball.
Yeah.
And
At
pretty
least
heavily.
while it's establishing. That's what I tell people all the time. At least while it's establishing, you need to check it every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a morning waterer. Are you morning or
I am.
evening?
Yeah. I try to do morning, but sometimes it's...
If you work full time, it can sometimes be really difficult to do. Okay, now I am probably like most people. I have a love-hate relationship with sweet potato vine. You don't need a lot of it to go real far.
Yeah, you need about one. Yeah, and people don't realize, so by the flat. But yeah, it will grow and it will love the heat, and it's tolerant of drought. Just one of the easiest things you could possibly grow.
And same thing, you can easily root cuttings in water. I think its greatest strength is its greatest weakness, and that's that it's still going strong in August, but by August it's the only thing that's still going strong.
That's true, you've only got sweet potato vine.
Yeah, and it's my least favorite time of year, so it's kind of one of those kind of things. And if you can keep the slugs and snails away, because it can get kind of it can get kind of holy. But look over here, here's some of the white pentas
Yes.
that she was talking about. But now you had a wonderful list, and I'm going to mostly let you take it from here, of different different annuals we've got over here that are maybe a little less traditional. Let's walk this
Yeah.
way. So tell me about these. These are gorgeous.
This is Blue Days, also known as Texas Superstar.
I love that.
It's
'Cause
beautiful.
I know the Dallas Botanical Garden uses a lot of this, so that's a great
Oh, do
name
they?
for it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's got a really great gray-green foliage with kind of a Mediterranean look. Beautiful little purpley flowers.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because a Mediterranean aesthetic is one of my favorite things for this time of the summer. It'd be beautiful, like with rosemary or other gray plants.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
definitely.
So tell me, how would you style this? What would you plant this with if you were doing a container or in your own garden beds?
I would do this with something taller because it is like kind of a trailer. Maybe like a pink or a white. The pentas would be nice. Even like a purple fountain grass might be pretty in there.
Ooh, that's
something like that.
That's dramatic.
Yeah.
But to anything to kind of accentuate the fact of its cascading habit, and other things that would be more bushy, more vertical,
Upright,
yeah,
right.
upright and things, particularly if you're doing container plantings.
Exactly.
So this would be pretty with dichondra, that Silver Falls dichondra, that gray color.
That's actually on my list of annuals to talk about.
Is it really? Oh, great. Okay, so this is also on your list, I know. Let's come over here.
We've got some Cleome here.
And this looks like it's, what is this, Rosalita? Is this Rosalita? Mm-hmm. Excuse me,
Senorita
Rosalita. Cleome, isn't this beautiful?
So pretty.
I grew this 2 or 3 years ago, and I have not grown it since, and I don't know why, other than my beds just got full before I found a place for it. But boy, this really looks to me like it would be a pollinator magnet.
Definitely. Yes, hummingbirds, bees, butterflies, they all love it. It comes in a bunch of different colors too, so.
And it's tough.
It is a tough one.
It's tough.
And it gets to a good size, so probably 2 feet by, it
Oh my
spreads pretty
gosh.
wide, this variety in particular.
Yeah, so if you were trying to do like a prairie look in your
Perfect.
garden, it
Or-
would be beautiful. I think that this is more in ground than in containers,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Okay, so let's go over here to these hanging baskets. Now, this is what's so fascinating to me. Every time I see this is the Scaviola we were talking about earlier. But look, Courtney, this is in white.
Uh-huh.
So white hasn't been out very long, has it?
No, it's a few years maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really tough. This is my big dilemma, because I've got some of it in my front window box. This is one of those that I'm definitely going to prune before I go on vacation, because what it does is it gets kind of leggy here, but then it just keeps putting out flowers
On the ends.
on the end. So then I'm never really sure
You don't
when
wanna
to
chop
cut
it.
You don't want to chop it. So this is one that would get my Chelsea chop right before I went on vacation. But it's really tough too, and it's in a great, look at that pretty combo.
Beautiful combo.
Yeah, look at all 3 of those
I
together.
know, with some white in there. That's gorgeous.
You're a girl that likes an English color palette.
I
can tell
do.
you're, real feminine, the pink whites.
I do. I'm not a fan of like reds and oranges in my garden, I think.
That is so funny, because I find people tend to kind of fall in one category or the other, and I tend to fall of an English house.
I think it's because it's so hot here. I just want my garden to look cooler than hotter for some reason.
No, and I think it's interesting, and that's a bad guy, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
That is. Tell us what that is.
That's a I can't remember
Cabbage
the
moth.
cabbage moth.
Yes,
that's it.
those
That's
drive
it.
me crazy.
But yeah,
yes,
you don't want
they
those
do-
caterpillars
yeah.
on your plants.
No, you don't.
No.
But I think there's 2 thoughts, because I was just reading something about color theory, and there's 2 ways to go in the summer. You can go the really hot, deep, intensive, fiery colors that can stand up to strong sun and look better during the heat and the strongest light of the day, so they can stand up to the sun. Or you like the paler colors, which have a cooling effect.
and I tend to go for the cooling effects.
Yeah. And also probably because you work during the day, so when you get home, the cooler or the more pastel colors probably stand out as the sun sets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's thinking about your lifestyle too, I think, informs kind of what your color preferences are.
What your aesthetic is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had a couple other ones that you were going to show us.
Okay.
Let's migrate over here a little bit. Oh, this is so popular right now.
Yeah, purslane, portulaca, rose moss, they all, if you want a tough, drought-tolerant annual, this is the one to go with. Just really vibrant blooms. You basically don't have to take care of it. You just put it in the ground and they will go.
And Stuart, if you don't mind showing, like there's some here that's pink and then there's bright yellow, but have you had experience with it going to seed and then coming back the next year?
It does do that, and yeah, it's an annual but seeds itself, so it'll come back.
And I don't know, as far as kind of succulent plantings go, I like portulaca better than rose moss because I like the thicker leaf
too. I think it looks less weedy.
Exactly.
Than a rose moss.
That's what it is. It looks less weedy and it looks a little more refined. But look here, if you were wanting to have a very specific color palette going, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Color palette going in your garden. Look, you could go this way because of the pink, but you've got the lantana over there that's in the same hues.
So
but if you don't want to have to water a lot,
that's the way to go.
Yeah. This one's for you.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about, you were mentioning to me Esperanza. Do you have some?
We have some Esperanza. We'll have to find it somewhere.
Go on a little adventure.
Yes.
And then there's periwinkles, which some people still love, some people don't, because when you put it in the ground, it's easy to overwater.
Yeah, and they're a little old-fashioned, but there's a place for that, I think.
Yeah. And then, of course, impatiens. I have never done a lot of impatiens, but I know for some people who have shady gardens, they're the way to go.
And there are sun patients.
Oh, look at this plumbago. It's a little bit darker purple.
Yeah, it is.
This is gorgeous.
It's pretty.
Oh, look, olive trees.
Olive trees.
I am just passionate about olive trees.
You aren't you? You inspired me to get my first olive tree.
Did I really?
You
I
did.
just love them. And aren't they just beautiful? And, oh my goodness, I would prune this. What is this? Is this Stuart's laughing at me? Piano Tropical. It doesn't say what variety it is. I wonder if it's just a sweet olive. But boy, I just think these are beautiful.
Me too.
I love. It's more I know all of these grays are more understated, but I really, really do love them. And let's migrate down this way a little bit.
I think this is where our Esperanza is going to be.
Oh, but I do love me some angel wing begonias, or dragon wing begonias. I guess they're called different things. Let's be more specific here. These are just called pink bronze leaf begonias. I don't know, but they've got the big leaf shaped more, kind of like an arrow. And I find these really do better in the heat than the typical ones.
Here's some Esperanza down here.
Oh, here we go.
Pink.
Ooh, that yellow is pretty.
Yeah.
And the great thing, talk about the great thing about this is because it goes to town when it gets really hot.
Yeah, it's definitely a heat lover, and it will grow fast and furious when it starts to heat up. It'll bloom those pretty trumpet yellow flowers all summer long.
And you might want to be a little bit careful. I've got some in pots right now. I have no direct experience with this, but I have some people say that it can even be invasive.
Well, yeah, it's native regionally here. So it can, I mean, it can be invasive and go crazy.
Yeah, so you might want to be careful, but again, another pollinator magnet, but would love the heat. And especially, it's also got an interesting leaf form. It looks a little bit like pot, kind of.
It does look a little like a
but
kind of leaf.
it's got a pretty textural form to it, I think, even when it's not in bloom, which would make a nice contrast with some other things. And then because I've kept you out in this heat long enough, you're so good to do this for us, Cortney. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Let's go over here and end up with these colorful spires over here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to explain to me why I liked the purslane better, and that is why.
It is why.
This can look a little bit weedy, and you would constantly have to whack it back for it to look a little tidier. And some people may like this. I just like a tidier look.
I'm the same.
Okay, but look at this.
This is beautiful.
Isn't this fun, Stuart?
This is like a tropical flower explosion.
And it's especially nice because they just watered here, so it's really
It's
cool.
cool. This is the best spot in the house right now.
It absolutely is. So this is celosia, or when I was growing up, we called it Cox Comb. And there are so many different forms of this now. It's really been hybridized
Tons of
well.
varieties.
But
this is a pretty standard celosia. Comes in the pinks and the yellow, and these orange ones are pretty cool. And these are just almost neon, aren't they?
They are. Look at that. Yeah,
that orange is beautiful.
Really incredible. Another plant that would segue really well into fall, I think. And then, oh my goodness, really is great for cutting and drying.
Oh yeah, and they dry really, really well, and you just like tie a string to them and hang them upside down, right?
Yes, yes. And this would make a brilliant wreath that would be just, I think, just really, really easy to create. This always reminds me of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, because the first time I grew it was from some seed that I got at Monticello. Nice. And they had big expanses of it there.
It's the best in a mass planting.
Yeah. And like in Virginia, it really takes the heat. Look at this different variegation in the leaf color too.
Yeah, the purple foliage is beautiful also.
But in mass, I think it's a unique bedding plant, and I think one of the more effective ones if you really like those bright tropical colors. Well, thank you so much, Cortney.
Of course.
You know we'll be back.
I hope so.
We will definitely be back. Stuart will put a link to the previous segment that we did with Cortney last spring when it was a lot cooler than it is now. But thank you so much for braving these torrid temperatures.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks, Cortney.
Yeah.